You'll need your notebooks today because you'll be writing some things on the board. Notebooks out. We have been studying this week about natural revelation, how we can use our reason to know God exists. As the ancient philosophers did. You have a question? Just raise your hand.
Do you have to write the dates on when we take?
Yes, write the dates. So
I'll start today. So
today.
What's the date?
What's today? The 24th.
Today's the 24th of September.
Yes. Then
Or
I'm saying it in 10, not even Spanish. So chill out. I'm trying.
Now, the existence of God, we've seen we can come to a certain knowledge that God exists. And we do so when we're using our reason to know that God exists, to come to a knowledge that God exists. This is not direct, immediate knowledge of God. Okay? So, use of reason, okay, to know God's existence, okay, is not direct, immediate knowledge of God. We don't see God. Okay? It's not direct knowledge. He doesn't appear to us. Okay? Direct, immediate. Okay? Rather, it is indirect and mediate. Mediate, like mediator, means we go through something. We go through reason, okay? A reasoning process to know that God exists. We don't have a direct sight of God. And it's important to remember when we're talking about knowledge of God through our reason, okay, that to know things about God we come to a knowledge of, it's our concepts about God. Okay. Concepts. That's a C. Concepts about God. Are arrived at by using analogy. Okay. You probably heard that word analogy. What is analogy? What is an analogy? We say something's an analogy. We use analogy. What are we talking about? Okay. Well, an analogy is a comparison. Okay? A comparison. And we compare one thing to another, and in that comparison of two or more things, okay, a comparison of two or more things, that are this is the important thing, that are similar but not identical. That's what an analogy is. You're comparing two things that are similar but not identical. You say it's like this. It's like that's what an analogy is. So, and most of our knowledge, especially about God, are based upon analogy. Our knowledge of God, what we attribute to God, is taken from created things and applied to God by analogy. So, with knowledge of God, okay, our concepts of God, we use created things and apply them to God in an analogical way. So, our concepts of God, our concepts of God are based upon looking at created things and applying them to God. Okay? So we use created things, creatures, okay, and apply them to God. Yesterday we talked about God's attributes. Okay? God's attributes. Also known as his perfections. Okay? When we say that God is good, well, we're using our human concept of good and applying it to God. Okay? So God is perfect goodness. Okay? Or love, okay? Well, we use our human concept, okay, of goodness, okay, or love, okay, and apply it to God. Okay. Because that's how we can know things about God and say things about God by use of analogy. Because we don't have a perfect idea of what perfect goodness is, of what God's love is. We're using human love and applying this idea of human love to God. God is perfect love. He's perfect goodness. We have created beauty, okay? And we say that God is perfect beauty. God is infinite beauty. Well, we don't know what that is. We're using an analogy to try to grasp what God is. So our concepts about God, okay, goodness, love, okay, beauty is another one. Okay. God is perfect beauty. He's perfect truth. We have an idea of what truth is. We apply it to God. But this is using analogy. That's how our minds can relate one thing to another. And another thing we have to realize that when we talk about our knowledge of God from the 5 proofs, okay, that there's order in the universe, that there's cause and effect, okay, these are arguments that are going from effect to cause. Because we're looking, well, here. Have you ever seen this term, a priori? A priori means you're going from cause to effect. What's before it leads to what comes after, okay? Posteriori, okay? You're going from effects to the cause. You're going backwards, so to speak. And that's what we use. We use this here, a posteriori, for the 5 proofs of God. Okay, we can, for example, the order in the universe, okay? When we see the order is the effect, okay? The order is the effect. We're seeing the effects. There must be a cause for the order. So we argue from the effects, okay, back to the cause. Okay? Cause with a capital C. The cause is God. So that's how our minds work in this regard. Okay. So the order in the universe is an effect. We say there's order, there must be a cause, there must be an intelligent designer behind the order, because things don't fall into order
What's
by
that
themselves.
in front of the arrow for an order? Right there, no?
This,
Right.
Yes.
for example, e.g.,
Oh.
for example, okay. For example, the 5 proofs of God, an example that is order in the universe. The order is an effect.
It does.
Okay.
I don't know. Just that.
So we use a posteriori logic from effects to cause to come to a knowledge of God's existence by use of our reason. And I wanted to just talk about, for a couple of minutes, the argument from design, okay? There's order in the universe. So this means that an intelligent planner, okay? Because I think this is the best argument for God. Okay? Intelligent planner, which means intelligent design, okay? And that's a popular argument among at least believing Christian physicists and biologists, intelligent design. Now, a basic rule of this is the more complex the plan or design of a thing, okay, or design, okay, of something, okay, well, that means logically what? If the design or plan is more complex, it means greater intelligence required. Okay? And we can look at the universe and the complexity of the universe, the complexity of nature, and scientists who have their hearts and minds open to God, they are struck by the wonder of the complexity of nature. Michael Behe wrote a book Michael Behe is a biologist. Called his book, one of his books was Darwin's Black Box, and he talks about what he calls an irreducible complexity of cells. Cells are so complex that, in fact, I'll read from him here, okay? He says, there are some biochemical systems which require multiple well-matched parts in order to function, and the removal of any one of its parts will essentially eliminate the functional ability of the system. He speaks of these types of systems, he calls them irreducible complexities. And these particular molecular systems are stumbling blocks to Darwinian theory because they point toward more intelligent design than slight successive random modifications over time. He points out too that evolution, biological evolution, presupposes that the cells are changing in order to conform with the changes in the species or whatever, from one species to another. He says, well, Behe's position is that if Darwin knew the complexity of cells, because he didn't know this back then, he would never have put forward his theory of evolution, because the cell, if you change one part of it, it doesn't work. He uses an analogy of a mousetrap. You take one part of a mousetrap out of the mousetrap and it's not going to function. And evolution presupposes a change in cells, and he says we don't see that change in cells because cells are irreducibly complex. You take something out, it doesn't function. And another, you could say, principle that goes along with intelligent design, okay, is what is known as Anthropic Principle. Anyone ever heard of that? Anthropic Principle. This comes from the Greek word for man is anthropos. Okay? Greek, okay? Man, anthropos. Anthropos is man. The anthropic principle is basically that that the whole universe was designed for us, for man. So all of creation is ordered, okay, for or toward, okay, man. It's for us. That's what God reveals to us. Creation is for the human person. God made the animals, He made the plants, it's all for us. It's all directed toward us, yes.
What if all the universe is for us, then how come we can't use almost all of it? We can only use just like this little speck.
You mean the earth?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But I mean, like, compared to everything else, it's just like this little speck, and that's all we can use.
Well, right now, but maybe we'll be able to use space travel, other planets, other resources. Maybe we can do that. We're starting to do that right now. We send rockets to the moon and to Mars, and I knew one of the scientists who designed the Mars
Rover.
The rover, yeah. So, yes.
So all those rockets, though, they
Listen.
pollute and they harm the Earth. So would that be considered a sin?
Well, it depends. Okay, if it's really harming, not all of them might. I mean, if it's done in moderation, we've seen that the Earth, like Lake Erie, is cleaned up now. People were not being, good stewards of the Great Lakes back when I was a kid. I mean, you could stand on Lake Michigan, you couldn't see your feet. It was just dirty. People were dumping things in, but people figured out, no, we shouldn't be doing this, and
Brennan, Jack, Please report to the cafeteria immediately. Brennan Jaff. Please report to the cafeteria immediately.
So we have to, this is why God gave us a reason. Okay? We could look around and figure, using our reason, that we shouldn't be dumping chemicals into our lakes and rivers because this is not good. People didn't really have a sense of this at the beginning. They just thought, oh, it's just dumping it into the river, it'll kind of dissipate it. Well, no, it doesn't. But it will clean up after a while. That's the kind of the beauty of nature. Lake Erie is clean now. I went walleye fishing in Lake Erie years ago. And, when I was a kid, you couldn't do that. They used to say you could walk on Lake Erie. It was so polluted with oil and gunk. And now it's nice and clean. So, but anyway, I'll share something else. I attended some conferences on these topics of science and cosmology and theology. There's a Dr. Peter Hodgson, and he's a fellow at Corpus Christi College in Oxford, in England. And he talks about how the orderliness of the universe really laid the basis for true science, and it was this idea that the universe is orderly and can be known through reason that gave science its big impetus. Okay? And he goes on to talk about how, well, he quotes one secularist astronomer named Fred Hoyle. He was studying the Big Bang, okay? And he was trying to determine how carbon was formed. Carbon atoms could be formed only with a very specific formulation, as well as oxygen. Okay? And both carbon and oxygen form at slightly different, almost the same formulas. And in order to get our universe the way it is, it had to be formulated in this delicate way, carbon and oxygen. And this Hoyle, who investigated this, who was an atheist, he said, it's not reasonable to say this was coincidental. There had to be a design behind this. Someone had to design this with the Big Bang and how oxygen and carbon come together or formed, how these molecules formed. It had to be a design. It's too unreasonable to think that all this fell in place just by accident. Okay? And that kind of leads to it led this Hoyle to the Anthropic Principle that, well, in order for our life to exist, the universe had to be formed in this way. With the carbon and oxygen molecules, and or atoms, okay? And this shows that there was an end, a purpose in it being formed this way. That's the Anthropic Principle. It was all formed for us, okay? Or else we wouldn't exist. It's a good argument, so that's why I put it out. Okay? These are what the Christian believing theists who are in the hard sciences are saying. Okay, so we don't have to back up into a corner and not say anything as believers when we're going into the sciences, biology and physics. Even though you go into the universities and so many of the scientists are atheists, they're pure materialists. And they've been kind of schooled in this thinking of that there's no God behind this. Yeah.
Okay, so ever so often they find a new Earth-like planet. There's been like 200 of them discovered. So the overwhelming likelihood is that we're not alone in the universe. What does the Catholic Church have to say?
The Catholic Church has no opinion on this. Has no teaching on this. That whether there could be life on another planet, there could be. Okay.
Have they proven anything?
Pardon me?
Have they proven anything to just that? No.
Not yet, but we don't rule it out. The church, this is a matter, that's a matter of science, so the church isn't speaking on that. God didn't say in his revelation to us that, he only created the earth with life. There's kind of silence on this point. Are there other planets where life has existed? Maybe billions of years ago, God had another planet and that died out. We don't know about that. That's all theological speculation. But we can say from what we know about science that it appears that there is an intelligent design behind things because it's just too unreasonable to think that everything fell into place by accident, and that there's this Anthropic Principle. There is a purpose behind how things got formed. And even, as I was pointing out, some of the atheists are just in amazement when they start investigating these things, how everything in the universe came together in just this certain way to allow life on Earth. It's ordered toward us. And it's reasonable to say, well, there's a designer behind it. This is God's plan in bringing the universe together. Yes.
But you think of like the vastness of like the whole universe and everything, and just like the fact that we can't even see like any of it yet. Like this had to happen at some point.
It didn't have to happen. That's what the atheists say. This had to, well, no.
Statistically speaking, yes, this would have to happen.
No, it's so remote. That's why you have these scientists saying this is precisely the opposite. And the universe, I think some of these scientists, they're taking the view that you're taking. Well, the universe is so vast. Well, it's small in comparison with God. God is infinite. So all this is.
We don't know what if the universe is infinite. We don't know that.
Well, the universe is created. It can't be infinite. It's created.
I mean, but if you go off of that like thought, but I mean, if you try to do like both thoughts, like if it's just you don't know if it's created and you don't know if it ends, it's also infinite. So you just I'm just devil's advocate.
People put forth questions like this. As I said, the church will take a stand on matters of faith, but not on matters of science. We leave that open to scientists, and the church doesn't make a judgment. Is there life on other planets? The church never said anything. Did God bring about the creation of our solar system by a Big Bang? Okay? The church is silent on this. But it tends to show that there is a design behind it, and there is an Anthropic Principle. There is a purpose and end to it. That's what scientists are finding. Einstein said the same thing. You read his statements. Albert Einstein said he was a believer in God. He wasn't an atheist. So there's room for believers in hard science fields.